Hello, everybody. My name is Kevin Hancock, Director of Solutions here at Exostar, and thanks for joining me today. I'm going to give one more minute for people who might be running a little late a chance to join up, and then we'll go ahead and dive in. Thanks so much for your patience, and again, we'll start at 1 minute past the hour. All right, everybody, let's go ahead and get started. So once again, my name is Kevin Hancock, Director of Solutions here at Exostar, and thanks for joining me today for Separate and Secure, protect sensitive data from external risks with a trusted, secure enclave. Before I dive into the formal presentation, just want to cover a couple housekeeping details. So today's webinar is scheduled to last 30 minutes. That does include Q&A. Now, you're going to be muted during today's presentation. However, we did receive one question prior to today's webinar, so I will answer that at the end of the presentation. If you also have questions during the presentation, if you'd like to go ahead and put those in chat, I'll take a look at that real quick just as I finish and make sure I answered some of those as well. If for some reason we do have an outage, just wait for a minute and try to reconnect. You can do that in a couple different ways. You can try and just refresh your screen and it should come back. Or you can use the link that was in that email that was sent prior to today's session to come back into the session as well. If at any time you'd like to speak with one of our Exostar managed Microsoft experts, or if you have additional questions, you can reach out to us a couple of different ways. You can email us at managedmicrosoft365@exostar.com, or you can come to our website, www.exostar.com. There's a question or a place to submit a question there on every page. So if you'd go that channel, we'll also answer those questions that way as well. So let's go ahead and jump in. What we're going to talk about today is how do you collaborate in the aerospace and defense industry. There's obviously a number of compliance requirements when you're trying to share information with your partners, third parties, businesses, etc. You want a way to securely collaborate, but we want true collaboration. We don't want just a one-way push of information to our partners. In this particular use case, it's where we actually do want to collaborate with our partners, where we want to get their replies to documents. Maybe we're co-editing something. Maybe I'm providing diagrams or drawings to them. I need them to provide me feedback, etc. Something where kind of your typical email or SFTP download scenarios don't necessarily work. So we have to worry about compliance, and in particular compliance with NIST 800-171 and the emerging CMMC requirements. We want something obviously that's secure and easy to use. And in many cases, many businesses have already adopted Microsoft Teams for this, but many businesses do not want to allow external third parties access to their Microsoft tenant. There are a number of things to worry about when inviting external users into your tenant. Your IT organization may not want to build those trust relationships. They don't want to have to maintain those rules and integrity across their tenant. It's just too much of a risk. So how do we go about truly collaborating in this highly regulated industry? So Exostar has actually been doing this for a number of years. Exostar was founded about 25 years ago by some of the large prime contractors out there, the Boeings, the Lockheed Martins, Raytheon, Ministry of Defense, etc. because they wanted to collaborate across their supply chain. Over that time, Exostar has grown as a community of suppliers in the aerospace and defense market. We have about 52,000 organizations, over 200,000 individual users that are part of that network today. And a number of you are using secure collaboration solutions provided by Exostar today. These are based on Microsoft Teams, and prior to that, a solution that we had based on Microsoft SharePoint. So we're trying to leverage those same commercial systems that you're using, but securing them so they can be utilized in the aerospace and defense market. And I'm going to kind of explain how we do that. I'm going to demonstrate our solution to you. And then obviously, if you have any questions, please let us know and we'll follow up with you. So the concept that we follow is a recommended architecture from ND Isaac, which is an industry group in the aerospace and defense market. They recommend what they call and what Microsoft itself calls a meet me tenant. This is a separate tenant from your corporate tenant, where you're just going to involve those third parties that you want to work with, and you're going to physically, well, in this case, logically separate the information you want to share with partners from your corporate network. Now, many of us probably think of this as what used to be called an extranet. It's that external system where we're going to collaborate with third parties. We're going to do this in Microsoft Teams, and Exostar is going to be the trust provider, if you will. So Exostar is going to manage those third-party identities. We're going to ensure that those identities are enforced with multi-factor authentication. This is going to be a FedRAMP solution. So it provides you that necessary compliance requirements around controlled unclassified information to allow you to share that information within the aerospace and defense market. This is going to be a managed service provided by Exostar, managed and supported by Exostar, so it doesn't burden your IT staff with yet another system that they need to manage, that they need to provide support for. And obviously, since it's with third parties, your IT organization probably doesn't want that additional burden. So this is that secure enclave up in Microsoft Azure GCC High. It's built on top of Teams. It is a standalone tenant dedicated to your organization, managed by Exostar, and this includes Exostar's tech ops and support teams. These are US citizens here in the US. And while in the tenant, you and your users are satisfying 85 of those 110 controls around NIST 800-171. We do this, as I mentioned before, by standing up a tenant dedicated to the Exostar customer. This tenant has an Exostar application embedded within it. This Exostar application is managing and providing some additional functionality to further lock down and fulfill those NIST 800-171 requirements around the setup of the Teams environment. So, for example, the Teams environment is set up in a deny first type of methodology, or a least privileged access. What this means is users don't get access to the tenant until they're explicitly invited by the organization or the Exostar customer. All right, so that Exostar customer is their tenant. They have individuals from their organization that are managing membership in that tenant. These folks are given a role that was created when this Exostar application was embedded within it. That's a sponsor administrator role. So that sponsor or Exostar customer invites individuals from their organization. They designate which organizations other organizations they're going to allow into the tenant, and which individuals from that organization are going to be granted access. They're also only going to get access to the individual team spaces that they're explicitly invited into. They're going to be coming into the tenant with credentials authorized from Exostar via our managed access gateway. A number of you are using this today to reach various supply chain portals. You may be using this to reach Manage Microsoft 365 today. You may be using this to reach another application that Exostar has, like our supplier management or our Forum Pass application, or other collaboration tools that you're using with some of those large primes. This credentialing that Exostar does is both at the organization level. So Exostar ensures that organizations invited into the community aren't on a denied parties list. We also then ensure the individuals that are invited are proofed, and you can dial up that proofing in a number of different ways. You can require a particular type of credential. So you may require a hardware token or a software token that's tied to that individual. You can have different kinds of proofing, in-person proofing, web-based proofing, US citizen proofing, things like that, to ensure that they meet your requirements before you invite them into the tenant. This application that Exostar embeds also provides additional functionality, for example, like what we call our compliant file drop. Compliant file drop is a way to have email into the system, not from an individual basis, but from a team basis. So it establishes a mailbox there within a team space. Individuals can send information into that mailbox, so it doesn't have to enter your corporate environment. So we're not exfiltrating any CUI into your corporate environment. It's going to go directly into the tenant. Individuals can then move that information securely around the tenant. If they need to, they can move it from a different team. They can then grant access to individuals to work on that. You have the other side of that, so you can send information directly from the tenant as well. You can lock down team spaces so they don't allow downloads from those team spaces. And then because this is a single tenant dedicated to that Exostar customer, we can also provide some additional, geo-blocking, or we can actually turn off functionality. Like, for example, we have a customer that doesn't want to allow chat in the Teams environment. So we can turn that off based on rules set for the entire tenant. So these are the things that we can enable and that Exostar would manage on your behalf as part of our fully managed service. So with that, let me go and show you how this actually works. So this is Exostar's Managed Microsoft 365. In this case, the Exostar customer is Glory Minerals. Glory Minerals assigned one of their people, Adam Spark, as the sponsor administrator. Adam then went ahead and added others. So we have 3 sponsor administrators from this organization, and they're the ones who invite others from their organization into the tenant. They can invite those third-party organizations in and then also allow those individual users. They do that using this Exostar application, as I mentioned, that's embedded within the Teams interface. So using this, they can administer this tenant. So this is where, Adam went in and he added other sponsor administrators in. He added Catalina and Maya to help with the administration of the tenant itself. They can look up individual users in the tenant. So for example, Emma Jackson from their partner Granger Systems. They've let her into the tenant. She's part of a number of different team spaces. But she only has access to those individual team spaces. As she gets invited into others, or as she's removed from these, then she won't have access anymore, or she only gets access to those particular team spaces that somebody has invited her into. The way the sponsor admins invite other organizations, they add those partner domains in. Then those partner domains can come in and they're authorized in through Exostar. This means all the users from these other companies are coming through Exostar's managed access gateway, and Exostar is proofing and providing credentials based on what Glory Minerals wants to enable for those partners that they invite in. We obviously can delete teams. We can also just put teams in an archive state. If they're in an archive state, we can restore that team. It's going to restore the content that was in that team, but then we have to individually invite those users back into that team space. We can also delete teams. If we delete teams, it's just that, right? That's a hard deletion of that team and all the information there. They can also get out reports from the system, right? Exostar, as part of our technical operations of the tenant itself, we're monitoring the tenant. We're providing the support for the tenant. These folks, as I mentioned, are US citizens here in the US, so this can also be used for ITAR information. But we're also providing you the access to do these reports as well. So you can get audit reports of all the actions that were done by this Exostar app. You can get information about all the licensed users, any pending users. You can also get actions on the individual files. So you can select a particular team, get all the information out from that particular team space. And this would be all the actions on files that were in that team space. Now, this application that's embedded is mainly going to be used for that team creation and user invitation process. If we're going to create a new team, and say we've got a new project, a new product, a new partner that we need to start working with. So in that case, we're going to create an individual team space for that group of people. They may be just people from Glory Minerals. They may be people from our partners as well. So I'm going to name this project, or this team space, I should say, more. And I'm going to give it a 12-month duration. And we're going to go ahead and create the team. Now, once the team is created, we can then go in and start to add users. Now, I had this file up, but I moved it. So let me go here and here. Sorry, everybody. There we go. There's my accounts. So I have a list of users here that I need to add to this team space. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to go to the invitation process. I'm going to select that team that I just created and these users. And I'm now using that federation of Exostar's application to Exostar's managed access gateway. And I'm looking up these users. Some of these are they're part of my organization, Glory Minerals. Some of these people are part of a domain that I haven't added. So I right now, Yahoo is not one of those domains that we're working with. If I wanted to add people from Yahoo, I'd have to go to that administration tab, go to that domain tab, and add that domain in. We've got some people that are already here in this particular tenant. If they're part of Glory Minerals, I can give them another role. This is one of those roles and permissions that are created by this Exostar application. So I can invite others from Glory Minerals to be a team manager. And now Maya can manage this team space without having to come to me, right? She doesn't have to go to one of the sponsor admins anymore. She can now manage this team space, invite members in, remove members when they're no longer part of the project, that kind of thing. There's a couple users that weren't found in Exostar. So these folks are going to be invited into the team space, but they're first going to be asked to create their Exostar account. That'll make them part of that organization. Then they'll be, credentialed and they'll be proofed. Then they'll get access into Exostar, and through our managed access gateway, they'll see that they have access to M365, and then they would see that they have access to the more team space, because that's where the actual collaboration and work is going to get done, right? We're enabling this work and we're gating it and making it compliant using both the team space, right, in GCC High, but then again, we're embedding this Exostar application to put those further guardrails around this space so we can make it compliant. So these team spaces are where the actual work is getting done. People don't see these team spaces unless they're explicitly invited into them. I'm logged in as one of these sponsor admins, so I see, a bunch of different team spaces, including that more team space that I just added. Now, I don't yet have any information into here, but we did have one of our partners send some information about the more project into the team space. They did that because one of those additional features that we've enabled is, as I mentioned during my presentation, this feature called compliant file drop. What this does is when I go into manage teams, you'll see I get a number of additional permissions and things I can do. So I created a team space called our CUI inbox. Glory Minerals uses this team space as the Dropbox for people to send in information, right? This may be controlled and classified information. It could be other proprietary information, could be information just from our corporate tenant, but we don't want to email it around. We don't want to necessarily send it out over an unencrypted method. So in this case, we send it via email into the tenant. It comes into this file drop inbox, and you can see that in here, I've enabled the team file drop capability, and then it created this email address. So earlier today, I went into my exostar.com email. I emailed CUI inbox at exostargcc2 on Microsoft.us, and I sent in some files. So if I look at that file drop inbox, you'll see that I sent in some documents for Project More. So this then brings those files in. When they come in, that's when those files are checked for viruses, malware, ransomware, etc. Right? Teams does that as part of its overall Microsoft service. Every time you upload a file into the team spaces, they're checked for viruses, malware, etc. These attachments are what I attach, right? So there's an Excel spreadsheet, a PDF, a doc, and then also a PowerPoint file. I can then export these into the team space. And then I can take these and I can move them over to that more team space. For now, that team that I just invited in now has access to these baseline project documents that they can start to collaborate around. And they can start to collaborate around them securely, utilizing, kind of that modern collaboration experience where we can co-author documents, we can just chat around documents. Whoops, not quite sure why that happened. Don't know why it asked me for another password. I must have timed myself out somewhere around there. We have another demo going on at the same time, and we may have also crossed accounts. So I apologize for that. But what this did is it brought these files into that inbox. I now have those in SharePoint, and I can then move those into that more project space. Once they're there, we can then start to work on those documents. So I can go into, for example, I have this Granger Systems project. This is that project where I work with people like the other partner that I'm working at. In this case, I've got those files here. I can now co-author those documents. We can start to chat around these documents. We can send messages back and forth, etc. So we're providing that secure collaboration space here in a Teams environment that people will find easy and comfortable to use. They'll maintain their files here within the web browser, so we're not bringing those files down to either our corporate desktops or the corporate desktops of our partners. We can now work on these documents. Because this is Teams, we get access to Word here in the browser. And then obviously as we edit documents, as we work on these documents, etc., this will maintain that history of those files. You'll see that I just updated this document a few seconds ago, and now others can see my changes. We could have been editing this together, etc. So we're providing that full Teams experience, but again, external from your corporate teams. We're not changing your email address or anything like that. You're continuing to use those corporate Teams functions in your corporate tenant, but you're using this when you need to work on controlled unclassified information, other proprietary information with your third parties and partners, governed and supported by this, what I call that Meet Me tenant. So hopefully that gave everyone a good idea of the features and functionality within Exostar's managed Microsoft 365. We're using that collaboration functionality that you're familiar with there in Teams. We're tying that obviously with Microsoft's GCC High environment to make that compliant with NIST 800-171 and because of that, CMMC. Where Exostar is providing that trust relationship for you and your third parties to work together. Exostar's tech ops and support teams are doing just that. They're managing and supporting this environment. They're the ones monitoring, reporting, etc. So we can deliver those 85 of those 110 controls of NIST 800-171 here within the enclave. Now, secure collaboration is just one of Exostar's many solutions in and across the aerospace and defense market. We have other solutions around compliance for NIST 800-171 and CMMC. These include things to help you manage your overall CMMC program. We offer a small business enclave for those businesses of 75 users or less that also need an enclave solution for their business. And then obviously many of you today use Exostar solutions around your supply chain. Whether or not that's you connecting in supply chain portals and getting your POs, submitting your invoices, getting the promise dates, ASNs, etc. If you're interested in that kind of supply chain portal for your business, we'd love to talk to you about that. We also have solutions if you're working with a number of the primes and you want to automate that process of gathering that information from those different supply chain portals. We can provide you an interface into those that Exostar hosts, so you can automatically bring down that information and integrate it directly into your ERP system. So as I mentioned, we did get one question prior to today's session. It says our parent company has stated that our SharePoint environment will not be shared with external users. What alternative options do we have? Now, this is not a canned question. This one did come over. Hopefully this session did help you understand that Exostar can provide that type of solution for your business, where we can set up that extranet for you, run that and manage that as a service so your IT organization doesn't have to support a second infrastructure. So with that, everybody, that kind of concludes my formal portion. Let me see if anybody submitted any questions while I was talking. I don't see any that have come in over chat or Q&A. I'll give it one more minute just in case people haven't quite submitted those yet. All right, everybody. Well, that concludes our session. I want to thank you all for your time and attention. Have a great rest of the day and a great rest of the week. Thanks so much.